Just out here mowing my mom's lawn and tidying up a little bit, getting a few weeds. And I was thinking to myself, I was thinking a lot of things. You know how brains go, they just go think about all kinds of things. But I was thinking, you know, I'm so tired of woke movies. I'm just tired of them. Sometimes they're my favorite actors. I have nothing against the actors. I don't even have anything against the writers of the woke movies, because I mean, I couldn't make a movie. I've just realized I'm not that talented. So they're pretty good. They're pretty awesome to make a movie, but I just don't like the content. So I told my mom, so I'm up here in Utah, and I told her, look, she made these flowers, and it's like a combination of real flowers and some fake flowers. I think she does such a good job. She's kind of struggling right now because the surgery's coming up, and she's also has some sort of a virus, so she's been sick for 9 days. Anyway, there's one of our palm trees. You can see how there's a lot of green coming up in the middle, but you can see a lot of brown on the outsides. These palm trees got beat up in this hurricane wind, meaning the city of hurricanes winds that are because of these canyons and the deserts to the south of us, and just a lot of wind in here. This one, you see, didn't get it as bad, but it's a little bit more of a stout tree. You know, see, this one's a little bit skinnier, so I think they take a little bit more of a beating in the windstorms. And anyway, but I put, you know, this stuff, you have to let it soak slow, because you don't want it running off into the road, but you want to get these guys a little extra help in these desert climates. But yeah, oh, so, you know, I mean, it's like, look, I know everybody has their own opinions and stuff like that. I was watching this Chris Pratt movie last night. I was like, I love that dude. He's like so cool. And it was so agenda oriented. It's like, oh, there it is. They want us to, it feels like, oh, they want me to think this way. They want me to think this is normal. Like, oh, whatever it is. And I was like, oh, I just can't stand it. I had to turn it off last night. But Angel Studios, I'm just saying, it's an opinion. Angel Studios has come out with some good movies and some good programming. Like, they're separated now, but The Chosen, that series, someone said, oh, it's just a bunch of hippies. My son said that. I'm like, what? Dude, I was late watching that, you know, late getting into This Chosen, but that is good. I'd probably watch that series over and over, because it's almost like a companion to, you know, to your scriptures. You kind of imagine it and read your scriptures and imagine it. But then we watched that movie called Bonhoeffer. He's the spy, the German guy that basically the thing that really stood out to me on that movie is I didn't realize that Bonhoeffer believed that what it meant to follow me was follow me up to the cross if necessary. I mean, be loving, be kind, be good to your neighbor, to, you know, give to the poor, like take care of each other, all that stuff. But when he said follow me, he meant to the cross if necessary, to speak against the hierarchies of man. Bonhoeffer, I realized from the movie, I haven't read his stuff yet though, but he has some good books that are recommended at the end of that Angel Studios movie. But he believed that we were supposed to, you know, not be associated with hierarchical organizations, because they just do no good with men. And it's so hard, because everyone's like, oh my gosh, that goes against authority, that goes against the tradition. But man, don't you think maybe that's what the scriptures meant when they said be careful of idolatry? Everyone thinks, oh, that must be like sexual lasciviousness. What if it just means we idolize traditions, we idolize authority? It's like if I walked in the room, if someone like lowly walks in the room, you're like, oh, he's not. Oh, but if someone with high status walks in the room, oh, you know, then we're gonna treat them with love and respect or whatever, right? That's what happens in hierarchical, organizations. But in Jesus' organization, Bonhoeffer, I don't think talks about this, but the movie kind of helps you realize he believes that we should, anyway, follow Jesus. But they don't talk about that very much in the movie. That's like, you kind of get that and you learn it like near the end. Mainly what he's doing is like, he just realizes, I don't care. I don't care what happens to me. I don't care if I die. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to give in to this. You know, the Germans are like pointing a gun to him, like, put your hands up, put your hands up. There's a whole group of men there, like kind of cowering, like scared. Of course you're scared. Some guy's putting a gun in your face. And they're like just saying, you know, good men. They're like just kind of like, hey, just put your hands up. We don't want them like freaking out and killing us all. And Bonhoeffer's like, no, I'm not going to put my hands up for these guys. I'm not going to. And it occurs to me, like in that whole movie, you think, oh my gosh, if everybody just took Jesus' courage and just, you know, grabbed one of the guys around their waist and refused to let go, and maybe started singing a song, or I don't know, you know, maybe some people who died, I don't know, disarm them, maybe tie them up and make them, as soon as they calm down, just, I don't know exactly. I've never been in that type of thing, but it seems like there could be better ways. But this movie is really neat. And then I realized Angel has some other movies. I'm sure some of them are a little bit corny. Maybe they don't have the best actors, but boy, if you have not seen House of David, if you look at this, I kind of organized this. It needs to be reorganized. But when I first started coming up to visit my mom, this was just shit. It was just like, you could barely walk in here. It was just all over the place, but got a little bit of organization going on. Needs to be reorganized. And the lawn looks so nice when it's cut, but it does, you see that? You have to edge it to get those. You have to edge it. Luckily, we have an edger. So sometimes I get lazy and just edge it every few mowings, which I'm probably gonna do this time too, but who knows. Anyway, it's so pretty here. I know you can't see it from, can't tell, just like I can't tell the beautiful, beautiful places the few people who watch this are in. But like, if you could see, like my eyes see, you'd see like even Kolob Canyon. You can see Kolob, just the top of one of the monoliths there. And over here, you probably can't really see, but there's the top of Zion, you know, the real iconic altar there. Altar of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Which that movie, Bonhoeffer, they talk about that a lot too, because Bonhoeffer was Christian, but he was befriending the Jews. He was helping the Jews get out and save their lives, you know. And you know, it's crazy. He only saved, I don't know, maybe nine people's lives before they caught him. But you know, his partner in crime, the other guy that pretended to be a Nazi so he could help these Jews, he was like crying after they dropped him off. They gave him all the money they had to pay off the Swiss guards to let him in. And the Swiss guards finally are like, yeah, fine, they can come in. And Bonhoeffer and his ally, you know, his ally's like sitting there driving this truck crying. He's like, I can't believe it. We just saved, you know, 7 men's lives or 9 men's lives, you know, it's like crazy. And then boom, he gets, you know, I won't tell you what happens at the end of the show, but so I told Mom, I was like, let's look at that Angel Studios and see, you know, let's see what other movies they got, because I'm tired of the woke movies, man. I'm sorry, guys. I know there's some good content in there, and usually I can just kind of plug my nose, and I'm not a hater by any means. I'm more like a, I'd rather not. Let's watch some good stuff. Let's watch some stuff that inspires you, you know, that doesn't try to tell you that, oh, you got to do this popular thing. Everyone believes this, of course. And getting like the best actors in the world, some of whom I think are so talented, but they got to make money. So these guys give them a script and they're like, okay. But check out Angel Studios. They got some good stuff. And check out The Chosen. To me, that is like The Chosen, you guys, is like the Uncle Tom's Cabin of our day. See, Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote that just before the the Civil War. Not that I'm hoping for any Civil War. I'm hoping that we don't have one, but just while there's some tensions going on. And why were there tensions? A lot of people have their reasons, but I know there's people who've studied it more than I have, but I've studied it a lot. I've studied the Civil War history and all that stuff that happened. But this, to me, The Chosen is kind of like the Harriet Beecher Stowe, Dallas Jenkins. He's like the Harriet Beecher Stowe in a sense. Or maybe you could say his is like the Les Miserables, of our difficult challenge. Kind of tells a great story of what was going on in Jesus's time and what was Jesus's message. Like, what was his main message? Oh man. And for me, the message is I love my mom's place. I don't mind coming up here at all to help her out because she's such a sweetheart and she cooks good and it benefits me too, so of course. But I know none of us understand it all. And we're all trying to figure it out. I think a lot of us are afraid because, of course, we don't know what's going to happen next. We want to be true to our traditions. We want to be true to our authority figures, but sometimes that can turn into idolatry. And I believe that that's what Jesus was teaching. Jesus was teaching all those people that he loved, all those Jews and Gentiles that he loved. He was teaching them that, we don't know the whole story because we only get what we got from, we got the New Testament. We have some other apocryphal writings that kind of help us understand the time period, but really we just piece it together as best we can. I read an article from a good friend of mine who I like a lot, actually, and he was like, this is what this means, and he was quoting certain scriptures. He's like, this is what this means, and I was like, oh man, that's not what I think it means. So obviously we're all trying to figure it out. Most of us are like, what does our authority figure say? What does our tradition say? But the problem with that is everybody thinks their tradition is the right one. Yeah, but ours is. Okay, but everybody thinks that. And everybody thinks their authority is the right one. Yeah, but ours is. We can show exactly how ours is the right authority. Yeah, I get that because that's what I grew up with too. I learned that too, but that's what everybody says. So we idolize authority. We idolize tradition. That's the issue. Well, what's the alternative? Well, I'm just saying, you have to decide, but I feel like Jesus is saying, look, we don't have to have any control here. Yeah, but you have to have a hierarchy. You have to have righteous hierarchies, though, and you have to have them check and balance each other, and you have to have the right. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. I get it. That's what we say in Babylon. But I think the real answer is, can we organize without any control? It's funny because in Milton, John Milton, he writes Paradise Lost. He writes other books too, but in Paradise Lost, he writes this epic, English poem about how, about the war, and it starts with the war in heaven, or at least, yeah. And he talks about how there's, Lucifer, Satan, whatever, who's saying, hey, I'm gonna make sure everybody makes it back, everybody, succeeds in this earth life, but they gotta use some force to do it. Jesus is like, no, you don't need to use force. You don't need to intimidate. There's other ways. And as an LDS, as a Mormon growing up, that's what we were taught too. Because we have, not only do we have the Bible and the Book of Mormon, which I think both of them are true, but we also have the Doctrine and Covenants, which for the most part I think is true. I think Section 132 is a different Heavenly Father than the other stuff that I love to read. But anyway, it's either Heavenly Father in a bad mood or a weird mood, or a different God. That's just my personal opinion. It doesn't sound like the same author as the other parts of the Doctrine and Covenants, but those things and what we call the pearl of great price, some of which is probably perfectly true, some of which probably got messed around with people, and even just our own understanding. We got to understand that I had a mentor who I grew to love very much in a short period of time, because he was also an author, so I was able to read his stuff, and so that makes me feel like I knew him for years. He wrote 3 really, really important books in my opinion. So, and then I also was a friend of his, and was able to have dinner with him sometimes, and when he was really sick I was able to visit him, and which was my pleasure. It was a pleasure for me. And I remember one of the things he told me is, he's like, Andy, it's a miracle that any of us understand anyone. It's a miracle that we understand each other. And I think that's a profound idea. We don't realize that what we intend to communicate is what actually is communicated, and sometimes it is, and it's a miracle when that happens. That's what he was saying. But I'll just end this way too long. There's probably only like 5 people I know that are going to watch this, but as my friend Greg says, maybe a lot of angels are watching this. Who knows? You never know how this all works. But my personal opinion is Angel Studios type shows, even the old-fashioned shows that were like just awesome, just, we wanted to be brave, wanted to be good. Good was portrayed as good, bad was portrayed as bad, and people made sacrifices to allow the good to win. That's like the idea. I don't like movies where bad is shown as good and good is shown as bad, and they're bent. It's one thing when they're a broken story, because when they're broken, it's obvious, and it's almost like the story intended for either the author will fix it, or you kind of fix it in your life. Those broken stories where at the end it's so sad that you think, oh, I'm going to live a better life so that doesn't happen. But these bent stories are like, at the end you're kind of wondering, like, why am I rooting for this guy? I think most people know what I mean, but I'm tired of those types of movies. And that Bonhoeffer, the spy / preacher / assassin, that was really good and worth watching. And The Chosen is the epic novel in cinematography of our day, in my opinion, or one of the key ones. And I really believe that without offending everybody, without being like, oh, you disrespect tradition, or I don't disrespect. I love learning about traditions, and I want to have good traditions and stuff. But the problem is we begin to idolize them, and then they lose their spirit, because we're just doing it because we believe we're supposed to do it, and a lot of times it becomes fearful. Not always, but. And if you ever had a different idea, you think, oh, it's fine. These people they're not bossing me around. These guys are loving, and they're loving because you agree. But what if the Lord put something in your heart that was a little bit different? Oh, he'd never do that. But I mean, do you understand the Pharisees and the Sadducees that put Jesus to death, and let it happen, and conspired to make it happen, actually pressured Rome to kind of condone it, etc. But those guys, I mean, they were the prophets of the times. They were the apostles of the times. I'm not saying our apostles and prophets are that bad. I don't think they are, the LDS ones, and even the leaders of other churches, the good ones. I think there's so many good people out there, but like, just talking about the LDS church, I think it would turn into that over time. Well, no, it can't, because this is the restoration. This is what it is. Yeah, but you believe that the Lord restored prophets, one prophet, and 12 apostles, which an apostle is different than a disciple. A disciple is someone who disciplines themselves as that person. An apostle is somebody who is willing to go without purse or scrip, meaning without money or credit, and just basically a staff, and without even a change of clothes. This is my understanding of what an apostle is. to speak against hierarchy, to speak for the kingdom of heaven against hierarchies, even in the face of death. That's what an apostle is. I don't, but we make all of our leaders administrators, and they get to make the final decision. And if we don't do what they say, you can call it love, but they can kick you out. They can ostracize you. They can make it very uncomfortable for you. So there is intimidation, even if it's loving intimidation. Don't you remember the war in heaven? Jesus said, we can do this without control. How do you do that? Well, and what happened? Well, I mean, we all have to kind of figure that out. If someone wants to know what I think, you can read what I write about and think about and talk about and stuff. And I know I don't know it all. The one thing I really like is the idea of it's a puzzle. It's like a puzzle piece. And we're all striving to do our puzzle piece as best as we can, check our motives, make sure we're doing things for the right reasons, because we have ego and we have the Spirit. In the scriptures it says, and in that day I will pour my Spirit upon all flesh, and even the lowly. And sometimes it's hard. There's a lot of people who are feeling inspiration and they're feeling like they're called of God. Lots of people are. I see it on Facebook, and I can see it on other social media, and I think that's because you are. That's because you are. That prophecy is happening, but we also have an ego. And we also have traditions, but my tradition's true. Okay, yeah, but maybe there's one part of all of your traditions that's up the problem. Just one little teeny part, but a big part, which is there's intimidation and control. Well, how can that even be done in another way? It's really easy. It's called a heavenly republic. It just means that you create small groups who decide by complete common dissent. Unintimidated and ongoing discussion, meaning that you're not allowed to intimidate, and discussion is ongoing. It's not like, all right, we're going to have one discussion now, and hurry, make your point quick. It's unintimidated and ongoing discussion, and eventual and ongoing consent. Well, what if we can't get something done? We got one guy that's holding something up. Well, that happens, and we work through it with Jesus. But maybe that one guy isn't just being a jerk. Maybe he is in earnest. He's that one guy, like in, what is it? 12 Angry Men. I think that's the one. Isn't that the one where they're about ready to convict somebody, and this one guy steps up? Anyway, it's either that or something else, but sometimes it is the one. Well, that's just too hard. It's too hard. Even majority rules is hard. But you guys got to remember what happens with majority rules. Immediately, people are picking sides. Immediately, there's side deals going on. Oh, not us. Well, okay, fine, not you, but okay, then the next generation. There's always going to be a side deal. There's always going to be jockeying for position. Oh, well, you use separation of powers and checks and balances. I know that was a really good idea by the American founders. Like, that was a great idea. Majority rules is better than dictates. I agree, but it's like the worst of democracy. They say we gotta save democracy. That's the worst democracy, because you can intimidate a population. A strong, central authority can intimidate a population to vote wherever they want. We've seen it. People have seen it if they've watched history and current events. So anyway, I feel like the Spirit tells me to stop now. And for the few that are still watching, I do have love in my heart for everyone. And the Lord's helped me, even the people that make me upset and I see the darkness come out in me. The Lord helps me, most of the time at least, to really quickly be like, wait, he's just a child of God. He's trying hard too. He's nervous too. He's got a wife who's maybe upset at him too, or whatever. He's got challenges too. So we're all just trying to do our best, like even our enemies are. But ultimately, I think there's going to be people who choose love and light, and there'll be people who, because of fear, it's going to be that. Oh no, it's going to be this or this. Now, back it up. We're all going to discuss long enough. And you're going to say, oh yeah, it was fear. We were afraid. We didn't believe that light and love could feed us all and fix it all and beautify it all. We thought there had to be some intimidation because there's boogeymans and there's real people who will murder. It's scary. Or we could combine in groups, like, I don't know, let's say it's 100 families. I don't really know what it is, but let's say it's 100 families, and they send one parent or both parents or all the adults or whatever, and maybe it's weekly, or maybe it's twice a week, or maybe it's every day. I mean, I don't know. They would have to figure it out, but it's like the whole goal would be, how do we make a beautiful community that's safe, that's prosperous, but we can do it through consent. Even if somebody does something wrong, there's a way that we can handle it without creating a hierarchy to do it. Well, how is that even done? Well, I have a lot of ideas, and I've written about them. You can read that, or just think about it for long enough. I'm sure the Lord's going to teach people to do it in a lot of ways, and I'm sure people, as we build Zion, because I think Zion is a project that we're supposed to start building now. All these Christians, all these LDS that are from my tradition, and all these Christians that are from my tradition also, are waiting, oh yeah, it's really bad right now, and maybe it's better with Trump, but who knows? And some people are starting to worship Trump, but I mean, I appreciate Trump, I do, and everything he's doing, I think it's been positive so far. But still, we're oh yeah, Trump's our savior. It's he's not our savior. He's an awesome patriot, it seems, but the savior's just going to come. He's going to just appear in a cloud. It's that's not what it's saying to my heart. I know it could be anything, I'm not any kind of whatever, but the Lord's telling me we should start building Zion right now. And the way we do that is these puzzle pieces we all have. It's where we get rid of our ego, or at least try to recognize it, and when we recognize it, kind of laugh about it, and then we what do we do? We recognize the ego, and we laugh at it, and we shrug those things off. But then when the still small voice hits, and how do you know it's it? I know my whole life I'm wondering, is that the still small voice? Just keep practicing. And the stuff that comes across your mind that's kind of dark and mean and vengeful, but it's justified. I'm sure that God would justify this. He's telling me I should yell at you. It's a good chance it's not true. It's a good chance that's your ego. Also, I've learned that usually the first thing that pops in your mind is the right one. Not always. Sometimes something weird will happen, but usually that first thing, you'll be oh, I should be compassionate. No, I shouldn't. He doesn't deserve that, It's whoa, just think about what the first thing was. Because a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times that was the right one. And try to determine, there's two voices in my head. The Spirit of God and my ego. And it's not that my ego is evil. It's that my ego is going to say what it's going to say. It thinks all kinds of things that anyway, you know how brains are. So check it that way. Check out Angel. I'm sure there's other people who are doing it too. Movies and books that are awesome and light, that when you're done, you're thinking, I want to be a better person, and I want to be, courageous for goodness. And all right.